with Monique. Elevate. Elevate with Monique. Elevate.
Hey, hey, hey. Hey, sis. Hey. Mm. How are you? How was your first week of starting from the bottom, doing your inward search? How did that go? I am interested. I'm curious to know. Send me a DM, send me an email, write a comment below. Just let me know, how was your first week? How did that feel? Did you experience some level of discomfort, excuse me? Or were you here for it all, ready to receive it all? I really would love to know. We are in week 2. Now, before we get started on week 2, I want to just take a second and I want for you to just close down your eyes. And we are going to take in some very deep cleansing breaths. At the top of your inhale, I'm going to count backwards from 3 to 1. I want you to hold it. And then when you push out that exhale, I want you to push out everything that may be in your face right now, everything that may have gotten you off guard over the last couple of days, everything that is possibly a distraction for you right now. I want you to push it out on your exhale, okay? Are you ready? All right, here we go. Let's do it again. And our last time, here we go. Very good. Very, very good. How does that feel? I know for me, every time I take cleansing breaths like that, I am able to just pause for a moment and realign with myself and get present in the moment. And that's what I hope you were able to do just now. All right. So we are in week number 2. And week number 2 is all about facing the facts. Okay. Week 1, we did some searching. We were able to recognize some things that came up for us, some good, some not so good. And we really got an opportunity to tap in. And now it's time for us to face the facts that this is really a part of your story, whatever it may be. It could be that you realize that you're really not a great listener. It could be that you realize that perhaps you haven't been a really good friend or a really good partner. And so now it's time for you to own that. Facing the facts is nothing more than you owning your ish. Owning the fact that, I'm sorry, guys, these lashes, honey, these lashes be getting in the way. But really owning what your story looks like. And as much as we want to only accept and only acknowledge the great parts of our lives, I think we've done ourselves an injustice and we were taught an injustice, and that is that we shouldn't worry about or recognize or even hold space for areas that are considered more of the shadow self or the darker self, or, the not so pretty side of ourselves. I don't know about you, but I was never taught to uh hold space for them or for it. I was never taught to sit with that stuff. I kind of, I guess, was subconsciously taught to push down the most negative, ugliest, bad parts of me as far as I possibly can and pull up all of these other areas that were so beautiful and so good and so this and so that. And so I pressed down, but pressing down doesn't get rid of it. It just pushes it further and further, and you put stuff on top of it. You pile stuff on top of it. And so it was very difficult for me to understand how to accept these parts of the things that came up when I would do my inward searches, when I would get curious about who I was. Sometimes I would actually even shy away from it. I kind of would like run from it because I didn't want to deal with those parts of myself. But sis, we are facing the facts this week. We are not allowing the fear of seeing these facts stop us from stopping these facts and saying, hey, I see you. I recognize that you are here. You have been a part of my story, but I no longer choose to ignore you facts. I no longer choose to ignore the fact that I was abused. I no longer choose to ignore the fact that I have insecurities. I no longer choose to ignore the fact that I have anger issues and rebellious issues and all of these things that have been holding me back. I no longer choose to ignore you. I'm facing these facts. Now, here's the thing. Just because they are a fact of your journey doesn't mean that that's what your journey is all encompassing. These are things that have happened, but it doesn't mean that that's the sum total of who you are. So facing these facts, first of all, it disarms these things because they no longer have the power. That abuse no longer has the power. That unforgiveness no longer has the power. That shame no longer has the power. You are taking the power back because you are acknowledging and facing the fact that these things are here. Okay. Now, we've been talking about courage. It's going to take courage to do that. It's like, can you imagine if you've heard the story of David and Goliath or any type of scenario where there is someone who is really small and they have to face this big giant, okay? In order to face that giant, in a way that is like, yep, I'm defeating it. I mean, David had no physical fear. We don't know what was going on internally, but he had no physical fear demonstrated when he faced that giant, right? But the reason he didn't have fear is one, he knew who was on his side, but he also had some courage. He had to have a level of courage in order to do that. And it is the same with us. We must take up the courage to face this giant. It might be a giant list of things, or it might just be one solid giant that you learned about yourself in week number 1. That now you got to take up your courage and you've got to face this thing. Because guess what? Now that you have acknowledged that it is there, it's not going to go anywhere until you are intentional about learning how to release it. Okay. And that starts with facing that fact and seeing that for what it is. Taking up your courage is hard because that means that people got to own their own. You got to own your stuff. You got to say, okay, that was me. When I made several mistakes that came to my mind when I first started doing the search, I had to say, yeah, that was me. Yeah, I did that. Man, that sounds bad, but I really did that. Yeah, I really said those things. Yeah, I really did. Okay. But it's almost like the saying when they say, when you know you have a problem, admitting it is the first step. Owning your stuff is the first step. You've got to be able to own it and say, and I really screwed that up, and take accountability for what it is that the facts may show you. Now, this will help you to begin to accept all parts of you. When you can accept the ish and the ugly and the nasty and the not so beautiful parts of you, man, it's easy to accept all the other. That's like the icing on the cake. So, learning how to face the facts will allow you to start to accept parts of you that perhaps in the past you never accepted. You just wanted to pretend like that part of you wasn't there. You wanted to pretend like the part of you that uh, brought you to these terrible, shallow relationships or put you in a position where you no longer have anybody to depend on because you've been so ugly to everybody. You want to put that stuff to the back burner and just deal with the fact that you a boss chick and you got all this money and you do da 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 da. But if you can't accept the facts and face the facts, then how is it that you're going to be able to accept things like receiving genuine love? Mm. How is it that you're going to be able to give grace to others when you can't do that for yourself? See, facing the facts of who you are open you up to be able to accept other parts of your life that you're going to need on your journey. Things like forgiveness, things like self-care, things like authentic relationships with yourself and with others. Okay? So it's important that you understand that this part of your assignment, this part of your work is going to help you to open the door. Remember, we're building a foundation. Okay? We're building a foundation. So the search was that scan of what's wrong with this foundation. What's wrong with it? Well, it's got some cracks over here. It's kind of unleveled over here. This side over here needs to be also raised up. This is a major crack right down the center. That was the search. And now we're layering on, okay, we've done that assessment. We see all these cracks. We see the unleveling. We see the things that need to be fixed. Now we're facing that. We're acknowledging that this really does exist. And in order for us to be able to do anything about it, we've got to be able to say, yep, there's a hole. Yep, there's an unleveled part. Yep, there's a crack. We are going to deal with this. So don't run from it, sis. Don't run from facing your own ish. Okay. Now, just because you are where you are, like I said a few minutes ago, it doesn't mean that that's the end of your story. That's the beautiful thing about being a human being is that we get to craft, we get to create our narrative. And so if during your search you realize there's some things that you've done that you're not proud of and that you don't want to repeat, then you get to decide what is no longer going to serve you in your life and what things you want to keep because it's serving you. It's bringing some value to your life, okay? So understand that where you start in your journey, where you start during this search, where you start with what you find out about yourself, I promise you, it gets better, it gets sweeter, it gets easier, it gets lighter as you start to unleash and release some of that baggage and some of those things that you found out about yourself. Okay. This also gives you an opportunity to self evaluate. This is probably one of the most important things that you will never, ever get away from, and that is self evaluation. Self evaluation is pivotal at every point of your life. Never, ever, ever get to a place where you feel like you have arrived so much so that there is no room and opportunity for growth. Okay. Self evaluation gives you the time, the space to say, if I say that I want to get to the top of this mountain and I've just been walking, just walking, 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 but I never take a moment to stop, assess myself, my surroundings to see how far I've come and how far I have to go, then the journey is just so much longer because you don't stop, you don't pause, you don't take inventory of where you are. Self evaluation, my sis, is something that you will need to get comfortable with forever. Okay. So if you've never had an opportunity to self evaluate, and I'm not talking about these personality tests that we take and I'm a sucker for a personality test because I'm always wanting to see what kind of personality do I have now as I grow and I evolve. But that's the other thing is you always want to self-evaluate because if you're always growing and you're always evolving, evaluation is going to tell you what things may not work for you anymore, what things you might need to release in order to make space for something else. So make sure that you are not running from the thought of self-evaluation. It's going to be uncomfortable at first, but I promise you it gets easier and it gets better. So all of those factors tie into this week facing the facts. You want to make sure that you are owning your stuff. You want to make sure that you are taking up the courage that it takes in order for you to face the giants in your life. You want to make sure that you are learning how to accept yourself through this phase of your journey, all facets of who you are. And you want to give yourself the time and the space to evaluate, self-evaluate. Okay. So this is week 2. I'm so very excited to share with you. I will be sharing with you in another video what your assignment is for this week. But I want you to sit with this information. I want you to really make it your own, and I want it to seep into your mind and in your heart so that you can prepare yourself when it's time to do your activity so that you can face your facts. All right, we are 2 weeks down. We've got 2 weeks to go, and I am so excited. I'll see you soon, sis. Love you. And as always, sis, thanks so much for tuning in. And if you like this video, do me a favor and hit the like and subscribe button. And if you don't want to miss out on any of my latest content as it's being released, go ahead and hit the notification bell icon as well. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.
Elevate with me.